good? Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Good evening. Hope you had a good 4th of July. We'll call this regular City Council meeting to order here July 5th, 2022. We'll start off with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Smith.
Let us rise. Let us pray. Tonight I pray for peace and love during a time when things seem so painful, hurtful, and senseless. I pray for your guidance and comfort to help us all reconcile the negative actions into positive, thoughtful, and productive actions. Lead us to govern ourselves accordingly and make decisions that are best for our residents, employees, and visitors to this great city. I ask for these blessings in your wonderful name. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You're still on because we're going straight into public session.
So at this time, we will take comments from the audience. If you have something you'd like to share with City Council that is not on the agenda for tonight, please feel free to step up. We would need you to state your name and your residence. You have 3 minutes to speak, and then you want to sign in also for the record, your name and your residency. So, and if we have anyone on Zoom, just raise your hand, and we will recognize you. Anyone? All right. Anyone raising their hand? Okay. Well, I will close public session at this time and turn it back over to you.
Okay. Thank you again. All right. The next item is approval of minutes for June 20th of 2022. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I move we accept the minutes.
Second. Any further discussion, comments? All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you very much. Next, we'll go straight into reports and discussion agenda. First and foremost, staff reports.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just have 2 items. If you will get out your calendars for work sessions. The first, Packlet Milliken is beginning to submit their plans for the Cadera project, and they would like to schedule a work session with council to bring you all up to speed, because the majority of you all were not on council when that PD went through. They said that they are available the 11th or any time after the 22nd, and they could do any time of day.
You're referring to July.
Of July, yes.
I'm not available that week of the 11th.
So then after the 27th?
When will you be back, Lisa?
I'll be back on the 23rd.
Would anything the week of the 25th?
What time are you thinking?
They said they could do a noon or evening, whichever was easiest.
I'm out that week, but do not schedule the president. I can obviously call back.
Can we do Monday or Tuesday, the 25th or 26th?
That works.
Which day?
Monday or Tuesday, the 25th or 26th?
Would noon or noon?
Noon would be great.
So, do you, will you be back? You'll be back the 23rd. Okay. Leave it then.
Yeah, I can leave it on the 23rd. Or the 20th. If we're doing lunchtime,
Okay.
I should
Okay.
definitely.
And then, would you all like to have one with the developer that was here tonight before it goes to a first reading? That's not required. It's up to you.
We kind of covered a good bit.
Any additional? I know you for the public hearing tonight.
Yeah, do we have a handout that he gave?
It was attached to the agenda.
Oh, okay,
So,
then it's in there. I'll get
It's
it.
in there, and then also you can follow our
No, I'm good.
Ally, of course.
But since I was not on council when that first one went through, I would like materials on that.
Okay.
If you can find those, that would be great.
Absolutely. So we will just have the Cadera Packlet Milliken on the 25th at noon. All right. And I will turn it over to Angela.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor, council members, colleagues. Yes. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak about our Juneteenth celebration. Why we celebrate Juneteenth. Juneteenth is a national holiday which commemorates the date, June 19th, when enslaved African Americans in Texas received word of their freedom 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. So that's an excellent reason to celebrate because it is part of our history. So next slide, please. So what I did here was I did a comparison of our Juneteenth celebration of 2021 and 2022. Our first Juneteenth celebration was at Abel Community at the Little John Community Center. And the events that we had vendors, DJs, children activities, and a Juneteenth community parade. The feedback that we had was that there was good community participation. The location was too small, the sound system was poor, and there were not enough activities for children. So for Juneteenth 2022, we had two celebrations. One was on Saturday, June 18th at Nettles Park, and the second one was at CAM on June 19th. And these 2 days, we did a variety of things. At the park, we had a main stage. We had a secondary stage, which was the community discussion. We had a kids zone, vendors, Juneteenth community parade, and on the 19th at CAM, we had the Harambe Dance Company with participation from the community as well. People got up and spoke. We had an art show, and just even for dancing, people got up and danced. The feedback that I received so far was that Nettles Park was a great site for expansion. There were more activities. The sound system was good except for the fact that past a certain point you couldn't hear because we didn't have mega speakers. But I want to thank Stephen for helping out because it was a big improvement from the year before. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the main stage, we had various activities going on. The kids zone, especially the art center helped us out with printmaking, which was a souvenir for each person who attended. It basically had Juneteenth written on it and freedom. We had bike giveaways. The art center also had a big banner which people could fill out, basically writing down what freedom meant to them. And as I mentioned before, we at CAM had the Harambe Dance Company. Next slide, please. Here we have a few photographs of some of the activities that happened at Nettles Park. And one of the most significant things for me that I thought was very impactful was the community discussion. We had a Black Men's Health Forum, and that's one of the first slides you see. And this particular activity, let me back up a bit. June is Black Men's Health Month. So during this forum, we had men in the community come forth, and they basically posed questions to each other in terms of what is mental health, what is, what has happened since COVID. And what I found very intriguing about this is that the men kept talking. The panel discussion was supposed to be, or the forum was supposed to be for about 45 minutes. An hour and a half later, they were still talking. And that's really unusual for men, first of all. and very heartening, because here we saw that there was this need for people to they felt good being in person and to really talk about things that impacted them. We also had a red table talk discussion with women, and that's the lower, I guess that's the second slide on the left. We had two women from the community. Well, one came from Greenville and one was a little further out. But anyway, they talked about hot topics, and they arrived, I'd say maybe about 20 minutes before their discussion, and they were nowhere around during the Black Men's Health Forum. But they also brought up some key points about self-care, and that if you're not healthy, you cannot help your family and the community. And it was just very interesting to hear this. Next slide, please. We also have, back up one more. We had Senator Alexander, if I'm not mistaken, he also showed up, which was really nice to have him, as they say, in the house. Next slide, please. Okay, so in this slide, you'll see activities happening again at Nettles Park. We had a variety of different groups on the main stage. I didn't put too many photos here about the vendors, but we had about 31 vendors participating, which is a really good turnout. One of the slides you'll see there in the middle, previous one, sorry. Those are people preparing for the parade. I forgot how many vehicles and how many people participated in the parade, but it was a nice turnout for that. Next slide, please. Here again, you'll see some more photos of Juneteenth at Nettles Park, the various groups that were around participating. The thing that I also thought was really key was that there was enough space in the front of the main stage so people could gather and they didn't feel too congested or afraid for their safety. Next slide, please. There was a lot of dancing going on. We actually had music for line dancing. And then you'll see some photos from Juneteenth at camp. The Harambe Dance Company, they performed for us, but they also had people get up and they taught them a brief dance, and they joined in, so that was really good. And the other thing that I'd like to point out in terms of the kids zone is if anyone was out there, you know how hot the day was. We had various activities for the children. We had organized games, but near the secondary stage, we had a sprinkler system going on. And these kids would not leave the water. They were drenched by the end of the afternoon, which was a good thing because at least they weren't complaining of being too hot. We also had the bookmobile there. I don't think I put a photo in here, but the children actually sat down and they listened to some stories dealing with culture and feeling proud of their heritage. And it was really nice to see that, because you think about a day where there's so much happening, but they actually stopped to listen to some books being read to them. So next slide, please. Again, I wanted to just thank the various committee chairs, Mia Tinsley for leading the group, Lisa who organized the volunteers, Cicely for the vendors. We had the Juneteenth Planning Committee, Friends of CAM, Robert and Pat. We had Dr. Brian Stacks from the Cemetery Project, Eunice with the Rural Health Clinic, Kathy from the Green Crescent Trail, and so many others, and forgive me if I did not mention your name. I'd also like to thank my colleagues from the city of Clemson who were so instrumental in making Juneteenth a success. Andy Blondeau, Lindsay Newton, who was the master planner, Lindsay Watley, who gave me so many good tips on how to be organized and thinking about so many things about signage and safety, Jay, Parks and Rec crew, Connie, dealing with the vendor, organizing the vendors, Leslie, Shelley for checks, Cody and his crew, because they actually came over and picked up tables and different things that we needed delivered to the park. Joan, Chief Campos, and forgive me again if I missed anyone, and of course Stephen for helping out with the sound system. I want to thank the Clemson Police Department also for security, because that was so important. As we see day in and day out, just the horror that keeps unfolding, that was on the forefront of all of our minds, and I believe that having the police presence there really helped at least secure the perimeters and give people the sense of safety. We had the fire department there, EMS, again, all the vendors who came out and were part of this, we want to thank them. The Public Library for the Bookmobile and Eunice for the mobile clinic, and all the volunteers who helped set up, clean up, assist in making everything work. And of course, the mayor, who was one of the last people to leave. I really thank you for your dedication. In terms of Juneteenth 2023, one of the things that we've been talking about now for the past 2 years is trying to do a regional Juneteenth celebration. The day after Juneteenth, I spoke with Shelby from the city of Seneca. She's the Bertha Lee Strickland executive director, Shelby Henderson. She called me and she wanted to find out how our Juneteenth worked out. And I told her I thought it went very well. I was really pleased with it. I did not have a sense of whether or not we had a good amount of people participating, since this is my second year. And the first one was held over at the Little John Community Center. And since that location is small, people were packed in. Where here, it seemed like there was a lot more space and people moving along and moving around. One of the things that Shelby mentioned to me was that she was a little disappointed in her turnout. And it seems like part of the issue is that Juneteenth is happening in so many different places at the same time. So we're splitting up people and people are being divided. So when we talk about a regional Juneteenth, what that might look like is that we come together, the city of Seneca, the city of Clemson, and some of the organizations, and we might divvy up the days of when activities are actually happening so that we're not competing with each other. We're sharing resources, we're sharing manpower in planning and coming up with ideas. So those are some of the things that we're discussing. We're still in the planning stage, and I'm hoping that it will work out, because again, it's a win-win for everyone, and we benefit through so many different things, as I said, shared resources and publicity as well. So we have not gotten together yet to discuss it, but it is one of those things that we're planning on. Are there any questions?
I'll just add, thank you for your leadership. I thought it was a great event, so thank you very much.
I know I was going to just say it was a great event. It was hard.
It was.
And that was a wonderful event, and I do think if we could do more with other communities, I think that will help with some of the issues we face, because we not only had Seneca, but there was an event that took place in Central as well. And of course Greenville has its own, but in Anderson. So I think we just have to have opportunities for people not to have to make those different choices. So I look forward to planning for next year.
I would see Central as really being, since it's so close, that would be the challenge. I'm not even sure that Seneca is, but yeah, I can see that Central, Pendleton, Clemson opportunities.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Appreciate it.
No other staff report.
Okay, all right. We'll move to policy action agenda. Remember, 2-minute limit per speaker, please. And the first one is consider for second reading an ordinance to amend the City Code of Ordinance Section 4.1, definition, and Section 4.6, cruelty to animals. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. The amended ordinance is been sent to you with the definition change, and the original cruelty as proposed is still the way it was when we proposed last time. Have any questions? Answer any questions.
Questions, comments for the chief?
So in the title, it talks about tethering. The tether is still forthcoming there. This is not the end of it yet.
Tether is not in this part of it now. It's still being worked on. I believe the definition of that has been removed as well, correct? Under 4.1. Sorry, there's multiple versions out there. I want to make sure you got the right one.
Well, we wouldn't want to make things easy. I'm making sure I have
All
the
right.
list.
Thank you, Chief. And comments from
I'm
public?
sorry. I was just going to say, I agree with something
Come on up, Margaret.
that John Duckworth said last week, which was that I think that adding specificity to these definitions is what I have kept in mind since you said that, and sort of focusing on that part of it, of providing literally structure about structure. I think anything we can do to relieve the officers from having to guess is a good thing.
So in this ordinance, it talked about the cruelty to animals. Is any part of this ordinance, this particular part, it didn't mention anything about shelter like it did before? Or Chief didn't say anything about it, so is that still included in this part?
It's in section 4.6. You,
Okay, I don't
can
have a
scroll
copy
up.
of the ordinance.
I'm getting
Yeah, I
to
don't know,
scroll
Steve.
up.
Okay,
It defines shelter and
It-
Can you just hold up?
specifications.
so it's the same as it was before. Okay, thank you.
Shelter is
Okay,
the
there
same
it
as
is.
it was before.
Proper shelter.
Okay, my question is, I think it sounds good and on paper, but how are they gonna enforce it?
When they have a complaint, they'll go out.
Just complaint driven, that's all? So if an officer's riding through a neighborhood and sees an animal that's not properly sheltered,
The cruelty to animal also has the original paragraph that says it is unlawful for any person to inflict unnecessary cruelty upon any animal, or ride, drive, or work such animal when the animal is sick or unfit for work, override, overwork, overload, or ride when overworked, torture, torment, or beat, or whip cruelly any animal, and it shall be unlawful for any such person owning or having charge of any animal to fail to provide such animal with proper food, drink, shelter, or protection from the weather. The two paragraphs that are added elaborate on what proper shelter is for that ordinance. So her question was, how is it going to be enforced? Obviously, if we get a cruelty complaint, we will go and investigate that complaint. If we find that an animal is being kept and it does not have proper shelter, as the two definitions that are being, or the two paragraphs that are being added, then that potentially can be a charge. If we are out on patrol and we see an animal and the animal looks like it is being abused or neglected, and we go to investigate that further and we find that there isn't proper shelter, then the officer will have to conduct an investigation. Now keep in mind, this ordinance will have to take the totality of the circumstances into consideration, because by this ordinance, if the owner can prove that the animal is sheltered in their home, then that would meet this definition. So we would have to look at the totality of the circumstances to see if they are not properly sheltering the animal.
So what you mean is, because I don't have a doghouse outside, but most of the time my dog is sheltered inside, that would be.
Right, so if you put your dog out into a fenced yard and you allow the dog into the home at some point, or into the garage, or whatever, that would be a proper shelter. So that's probably to the extent of that. If there's a dog that's kept outside all the time and not allowed in the house, and we can prove that the dog is not being allowed in the house, then there has to be a separate shelter for the dog in the yard in order to meet this definition. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, Chief.
Proper shelter is a structure large enough for an animal to stand, turn around in line a normal manner. The structure must adequately protect the animal from rain, snow, standing water, from harsh weather. At a minimum, shall have a roof, 4 sides, a floor, not earth, and an opening for ingress and egress. There's a lot of them that don't live that way. That's what I'm asking. So if you're going through, you see something and they're not as described here, off the ground or 4 sides or a roof, what's the enforcement going to be? Not, do they have to get a cruelty complaint first in order to go out there, and then the shelter's a secondary? Is that how I'm understanding what you just said?
No, I mean, Margaret, I mean, you have the updated, if this approves tonight, you have the update of the ordinance. And then the chief just said it very well, I think, that he's going to address each situation based on the circumstances, or his team is going to address it based on the situation.
Okay. Have y'all come up with any kind of what the fine will be, or enforcement, or anything like that from Plainview?
No, we have not.
No fines or?
I'll look at Mary.
The fine currently under this section is, there's a catch-all 1.8 that gives you the jurisdictional limits of the municipal court, which is 30 days, $500 or 30 days or both. And so that would apply for now, but as they add in the tethering thing, they may want to look at the other aspects of the penalties under that. And I think the chief has been working on that aspect of it. And I would also say, this is not an ordinance. Animal cruelty is not something that's just one officer riding around a sector. Who comes to your house all the time? Trash people, meter readers, the U.S. Postal Service. Those 3 groups of people have eyes on the animals in the city, and I actually get a lot of reports from them as to what's going on. And they may not go to every 100% of the houses within the city, but they're going to about 95%. And I think that's also another enforcement mechanism, because they see the animals every day.
Well, I think it's a start. But this is what y'all done is, I mean, it's fine and everything, but I don't see where it's any different than what we're doing right now. I don't see any difference in it whatsoever. Except that y'all might be trying to avoid the bigger picture with a tether. And you're coming up with this. Because there's a lot of these animals out here that don't live in proper shelter. Do I want to ride in somebody's neighborhood and spy on people? No. But there was a fine example that when a councilman had to go, and I think you responded to a house where the dog had not been seen with food or water for a week. The house was overturned. Councilman went to the door, went out there and got the dog water. I don't know if the police responded, but a community organizer, I think, responded, according to his text. So my concern is this is, while it's a start, I just doubt it'll be enforced, whether they have proper housing or anything like that. Because I think that what Mr. Fulmer brought up was that, well, who's going to pay for all this? I'm not. Unless they come to us and ask us and need help and things, I'll be glad to help people. But there's a lot of, I could take you to places right now in this city. So if I can see them, and I'm not a police officer, what do they see? So, unless you just don't want the thing done. So I'm just going by what's in, off the ground, 4 sides, a roof, That's what I'm reading, right?
I'm looking up there at the
A
same
lot of
time.
this doesn't match what I see.
Well, then report it. That's all we can do, is report what we see.
Would you rather us do nothing? I mean, you gotta start somewhere and build upon it.
Well, I hope you will. I mean,
Not every animal is gonna live the way some of us at this table.
no, but the trend is changing is what? The people are sick of this, of people living in barbaric ways with their animals, leaving them chained up 24/7 and things like that. They're sick of it. In a lot of areas in the county of Charleston, the city of Charleston's looking at doing something with banning tether. The state of Florida, read their laws, and they got county after county after county that the only way you can tether your animal is you have to be in attendance with that animal. I'm for that here. You're sitting outside working in the yard or sitting on the porch or something, your animal's tethered, I see nothing wrong with that. My dog at the clinic, when I'm sitting outside with her, she's tethered. But a lot of what we're talking about is not the proper way, and I know it.
Well, then report it.
Okay? I'm not gonna let it go. Thank you.
But just to be clear, this is not the end of it. There is still a pending.
But I could pick up on buttons on it.
No, I'm saying that-
I know it's not a popular subject, I understand that, but I see the idea of it, what it does to animals. I see the cruelty part, the collars rolling the necks, and, I mean, y'all can't,
Well, Morgan, I think you just stated that this is a start to address.
It is a start.
I think you just stated that.
What I was saying,
That's my biggest.
just to be clear, that what I was saying is that there is still going to be at some point in the near future a tethering proposal that comes to city council. It's my understanding that this is not replacing that. This is a step leading up, or a component of what will be.
I just worry about enforcement, nothing else. I think what's in here sounds really great, but it will be enforced. Thank you.
Do you want to say anything else, Lynn?
I'll just reiterate that we respond to, sorry, I gotta look at my phone. I sent a memo out to you all as to how many animal calls that we handle, and so year to date, and I don't have the figures in front of me, we get several hundred of those.
There's been 89 animal calls to date, and this includes all animals, cats, snakes, pigs, deers, cows, and dogs.
And of those, 21 were abuse allegations, in which we went out and investigated. And abuse specifically wasn't cited in some of the cases, but I do know that we have cited people for allowing their animals to run loose because they keep getting out and they're not doing anything to make sure that they're staying in. So we have had a couple of those citations this year alone. And compared to neighboring communities, I checked with the city of Seneca late last week, and I got the numbers today. And in the past year, Seneca had 276 animal complaints, most of which are barking dogs or dogs on the loose, and 3 were dog bites. And I asked how many abuse cases there were, and they were going to look into that, but the chief didn't seem to believe there were very many abuse complaints over there. So that's the quickest like-sized city that I can find in our area of the type of animal complaints that we get. And I reiterated in our memo, a lot of our complaints are bears, deer, snakes, in people's houses, those kind of things. So they all get lumped into animal calls.
Sorry, it was the bear that made me smile.
I think that's been well documented.
The only thing I wanted to add is we have to at some point,
Thanks, Chief.
with every issue, we got to deal with the actual core of the issue. And there are different ways to address what we want to do is protect individuals, as also we want to protect the pet. And I think we have to trust our law enforcement that if we provide these ordinances, that they will do what it is designed to do, and that is enforce it and protect. So we haven't even given it an opportunity to know if it's going to work. where we have to give it an opportunity. If it doesn't, or there needs to be some revisions, we can always come back and do that. So I believe it's important to at least give the opportunity and trust that, but it's not a one-size-fits-all, because every case is based on an individual merit, and you have to look at the totality versus just one aspect. So I think that's what we're trying to do here, and I believe that's the best route. Ensure that we're being fair to all.
This would be immediately.
Yeah,
This is immediate,
It goes into
if
that.
it passes.
This is first grade, this is first or
This
second?
is the
grade?
Second
Yes.
reading.
If they vote for it.
Elaine Masseri, 204 Wren Street, Clemson. I just want to address one aspect of this, which is the terminology harsh weather. I know y'all have heard me talk about this before, and this may be what you were talking about, Catherine, about being specific. I have several reasons for being more specific about the terminology harsh weather. Number one, my interpretation of harsh weather might be totally different than an officer's term definition of it. And that's fine. It'll end up going to court. We don't need these kind of things in court. The court's already backed up. So I like it to be specific on the temperatures. And another reason is because every municipality in South Carolina and every ordinance I have read, they have specific temperatures in them. There's very few that don't. For instance, if my dog is outside, and they don't have to be attended, these dogs. So if my dog is outside all day long in 95-degree weather, that water is going to be hot. If it's outside in 30-degree weather or below, and it's unattended for any period of time, that water is going to be frozen. So that's why I think that there should be specific temperatures, whatever you deem to be harsh, but I think it should be specific. And I think this all hinges on the fact that the dogs or the animals do not have to be attended. So thank you for listening to me.
Steve, any thoughts? Anyone else anyone from city council? Someone like to make a motion?
I move we approve the second reading of the ordinance related to cruelty to animals, section 4.1 and 4.6.
Second.
Further discussion, comments? All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you very much. No opposed. Next would be agreements. Item A is to consider authorizing the chief, you're back up, chief, and myself to enter an agreement with the school district, Pickens County, for SRO at Clemson Elementary for the 2022-23 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Sir.
This agreement is identical to the agreement from last year. It's providing financial reimbursement to the city for providing a school resource officer at Clemson Elementary School. It's the same agreement that's used with all the other law enforcement agencies. The amount that they reimburse us is $16,250, which is partially the cost of an officer.
Is the office go through every day?
Every day that the school is open, and on some teacher work days that are out there. They do work with the staff. They're out there in the morning directing traffic as people are coming in, and in the afternoon as they're leaving. And if they are not there, we have another staff member that goes and relieves them for whatever. So if they're out sick or something, we always have a staff member there.
Other questions? You comfortable with the duties and responsibilities?
I am, and I'm constantly negotiating for more money, so.
Well, it's your area of expertise.
Okay, if there's no other comments, questions for Chief?
I make a motion,
Yeah, there. Go
I
for
make
it.
a motion to authorize Chief Campbell and the mayor to enter an agreement with the school district of Pickens County for SRO at Clemson Elementary for the 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
Okay. Further discussion, comments? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. I assume I can since I'm the one signing. Mary, I look at you. Okay. All right, none opposed. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chief, again. Next is, last is other policy items. Consider adding Juneteenth as a city holiday. Councilmember Smith.
Yes, I wanted to bring this to council's attention. As a result, we do know that this is a national holiday that is recognized, and several of our different municipalities already in Pickens County is recognizing, as well as, I believe it's Greenville, I think Beasley, Seneca, and I know Greenville and others are recognizing as a city holiday. So I think that this would be a wonderful way for the city to recognize the importance of this holiday, that it's not just about freedom for the enslaved individuals, as Angela talked about when she did her overview, but this is about our country and what this means to us as a community. So I would like to consider adding Juneteenth as a city holiday for that reason.
And I'll just add one thing. I think the notes are right. City of Seneca and City of Anderson.
And it's-
Thank you. I've officially adopted. Comments, questions?
Does Pickens County? Pickens County doesn't.
Yeah, the only, I think, I'll kind of look at Ally over here, because she was very, thank you for your due diligence, and you're the one that stated that the city of Seneca, 80%, but I'm not sure.
I don't believe so.
We're taking action tonight.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
So if somebody would like to make a motion, and you can see the non-paid holidays and the impact, financial impact.
Actually, I do see Pickens County as having Juneteenth as one of their
Recognize
official
that.
holidays.
Thank you for,
Thank
that's
you.
good. Thank you for clarifying that, Mary.
I thought I'd read that somewhere, so
Thank you.
I was making it up.
So we can have Pickens County.
That's right.
So I would like to move that the city add Juneteenth to the list of holidays recommended by the city of Clemson.
Recognize. And there's a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Further discussion, comments? All right. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right. Thank you very much. Last, mayor council reports, comments, new business. Look to my left, yes. Grant?
Just to actually go back to something that he just said, so I did look, actually, the National Weather Service has 6 or 8 categories of severe weather that they actually call severe weather alerts. And it's snow, local storms, winter storms, fire, flood. Anyway, so if you want, maybe later on, or maybe even in the Tether to take that. Apparently, the National Weather Service releases severe weather alerts if they fall into these
And we'll
categories.
do that by 3. My labs that swim in ice water.
I would think they would-
versus other ones.
I would think that.
There's a lot of weeds in there.
No, I mean, I think that the closest we'd ever get is if the National Weather Service releases a severe weather alert, someone received a severe alert, may not be familiar, but anyway, just the thought as we move on to tethering, if we want to define it, there are formal, apparently, definitions of what a severe weather alert entails.
But severe is different than extreme.
They just use severe, just,
We had severe weather, woke up with thunderstorms last night.
So I'm gonna, Chief just came up. Chief,
Just for a point of, to let you know where some of this discussion came from, we initially had temperatures in there and other things, and the more we got into it, the more we got into the weeds. And there are some city ordinances, like the one that I shared with you that the city of Charleston is considering, does refer to another part of their ordinance that defines the weather. But the problem we ran into is there are certain breeds of dogs specifically that thrive more so in colder weathers. And then there's an argument that we heard recently that animals that are outside all the time are able to cope with extreme hot weather by being in shade and digging holes and other things that animals do to cool off. So it goes back to the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish is if we as a officer go to, and today we talked about animal cruelty, but even when we go to tethering, if we see that the animal is laboring as a result of the weather, then I would interpret that to be a violation. But if the animal is like, this is my, as some people put it, this is my house, this is my spot, this is my time, whatever, and the animal doesn't look to be fazed by the weather, then I don't think we should be dictating in an ordinance those specifics, because we're looking at the overall wealth of the animal, the health of the animal. And so I think when we start going down that road, we start getting into that back and forth, like Mr. Duckworth said, some animals will play in ice water and be perfectly fine. And then some animals, their toe hits the ice water and they're shivering. Well, that would be an indication that's too cold for that animal. The animal's not going in there. And if you're forcing the animal to go in there, then you're overworking the animal and you're stressing the animal, and it goes into that whole cruelty thing. So again, the totality of the circumstances, I think, is what we have to take a look at when we're enforcing it. And that's just some of where some of the discussions have gone. We've gone one way, gone the other way. And if we need to come back and tweak it later, we can come back and tweak it later. But I think that's where we came back to.
I just think that then this gets back to the point that we really should not use the word severe weather. We should use the word that a police officer is looking for. In other words, an animal distressed because of the weather would be clear, because severe weather doesn't, you just said a really good explanation. If you capture the thing you're looking for, to say that is having a stressful effect on us. So I think
the draft that I sent out to the last group, and Alicia, you got a copy of that. I think I put wording in there that talked about that taxes the animal, whether that taxes the animal in the tethering ordinance. It does not say it in the cruelty one because we left the first part alone. So when the tethering ordinance comes out, you'll see some verbiage we put in there to try and stress that it's taxing the animal, and we're still going to have people who are going to look at an animal, and in their opinion, that animal is taxed. And when I looked at it, it's not. Because we have that right now under animal cruelty. We have officers that will go out and say, I wouldn't treat my dog that way. But the dog is fed, it looks healthy, doesn't have wounds, I wouldn't treat my dog that way, but the dog doesn't meet the extreme as the ordinance or the state law says that it does. So I think we're going to have that dichotomy as we continue through this journey, because everybody has their own opinion about how their dogs or animals should be treated.
When's the next police advisory committee meeting?
The next police advisory is the fourth Thursday of July, which is the 28th.
Okay.
I think.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Fran. Other reports?
We have MASC next week, right?
Correct. Thursday, Friday.
I do have one
Yes.
thing, and I just, for you all, I don't know if you all are familiar with the Red Hill community reunion, and it's a community event. It's not a family reunion, but it's individuals who lived and grew up or know the Red Hill community. So that was held this past Saturday. And if you had a chance to come out to see that event, it was amazing. And it was just family who was still here, but people come back because they used to live in the community. They wanted to see what it was like, how things have changed, and find out about different people. But it's a great opportunity for the city to see it from a different perspective. And if you talk about trying to get some information about the community, that's a great time to do that. So I was sitting there, and I think having conversations with some of the community members, and a lot of times they want to get involved, but they feel like, why should they? Because there really is no reason. Things are not going to be different, no matter how much engagement they provide. And I think we just got to change that narrative, if at all possible. So I may talk a little bit more about that community, that event a little bit later. Just trying to process it all, but I just wanted to acknowledge it was an awesome event, and it was pretty nice to be out there. So I just want to encourage you. I know they're planning to have it again next year, but they have it the first Saturday in July is when they try to do that. But it is a community effort. It's not just one family. It is a totality. It's pretty amazing.
Other comments, new business? If not, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Any further discussion, comments? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. All right, we are adjourned. Have a great rest of the week.
Wow, thank you.
Allie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Not over the best Thanksgiving, not over the
That's true.
Christmas Eve, and you know, there's all.
Goodbye.
I got, if you look at